Good evening. My name is Dr. Anna Cohen, and I'm the founder and honorary chair of the International Holocaust Remembrance commemorations presented by the Jewish Federation of Sarasota-Manatee. Tonight, we gather to honor the memory of 6 million Jews murdered during the Holocaust, 2/3 of European Jewry, victims of the Nazi regime's systemic crimes. At a time when anti-Semitism is rising and historical truth is increasingly challenged, our mission is clear. This commemoration focuses on the urgent need to combat Holocaust distortion, the twisting, minimizing, or misrepresentation of the facts of the Holocaust. As we mark the 81st anniversary of the end of the World War II, and as fewer survivors remain to bear direct witness, the responsibility to preserve truth now rests with all of us. All of us. The Jewish Federation is deeply committed to Holocaust education support in schools and ensuring survivor testimonies are shared. Through our Survivor Speakers Bureau, more than 20,000 students since 2014 have learned directly from those who lived this history. An essential defense against distortion and denial. To honor the victims is not only to remember, but to stand up for truth, to become witnesses ourselves, and to ensure future generations can recognize falsehood, confront hate, and prevent such atrocities from ever happening again. And now, please join me in welcoming the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Sarasota, Shep Englander.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for your dedication these many years to making sure that Holocaust education is strong and valued and of the highest quality here in Sarasota. And thank you to all of you for being committed, for being here for this sacred time together. As you probably know, this is not a day that was chosen by accident by the United Nations. It was chosen because this was the day of liberation of the worst of the death camps, Auschwitz-Birkenau, where my father's family perished. Of dozens and dozens of his mother's family and many of his father's family, only 2 came to survive and came to America to live with him, and I grew up with them. So this was very personal for us and something that we only got them to talk about later in their lives and lost them too soon. So all of us are here remembering people we knew and people we never got to know. Holocaust education is essential, especially in these times of skyrocketing anti-Semitism, as Anna said, and it's really horrifying to see the amount of Holocaust denial that's obsessively growing, especially fueled by social media, misinformation, and now even artificial intelligence. We need to fight back and push back in every possible way. because anti-Semitism fuels Holocaust denial, and Holocaust denial fuels anti-Semitism. And education at an early age, especially through the schools, is one of the most important strategies we can pursue. And the Jewish Federation has been pursuing it with the leadership of our professional staff, and especially Betty Zaret for many years, where we've developed strong, trusting relationships with both Sarasota County and Manatee County public schools, as well as the Catholic schools and the private schools. We train the teachers, we bring them to experience the death camps directly, and we provide curriculum materials, and soon we'll be opening the Chaffetz Holocaust Education Center, which will be a unique, immersive Holocaust education center unlike any in the country. It will be age appropriate, and it will use art and archival photography to show and teach the lessons of the Holocaust in a way that will be undeniable. It will be unforgettable without being inappropriate. We've been working on it very carefully, securing original artworks with globally recognized artists, and it's something that I am incredibly proud to be working on, and very grateful for Edie and David Chaffetz and the many other donors who have invested in making sure that we have something that we will be proud of for generations and will make a real difference in combating Holocaust denial and in helping future generations understand the lessons of the Holocaust. We combine all of these different strategies together: teacher training, curriculum development, public affairs and legislative advocacy, making sure that Holocaust education remains mandated as it is in the Florida public schools, and that there's resources for it. And then, of course, to build our immersive, unique education center. But we also make sure to have public events like this, where Jews and non-Jews together can hear from scholars and experts on Holocaust education and can share those insights with everyone we know. And that's why we're here tonight. We're very honored to have one of the world's greatest experts on both anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial, Dr. Kathrin Meyer. Her work underscores the truth that safeguarding the historical record is absolutely essential so that we can remember the 6 million who were murdered and the many others whose lives were ruined, Jews and non-Jews. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our hosts for the evening, our passionate community leaders, Rob and Joyce Weiss.
Good evening. This is good. We are Rob and Joyce Weiss, and we are honored to serve as your hosts for this meaningful program. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. One last reminder, please turn off cell phones. Check it, there's always one, right? We gather for International Holocaust Remembrance Day, a day of solemn memory, deep reflection, and renewed commitment. This commemoration is not only about teaching the history of the Holocaust, though that alone is vital. It is also about embracing its enduring lessons. Lessons that compel us to defend human dignity, to challenge hatred, and to ensure that truth never yields to distortion, denial, and indifference. Because today, as Holocaust distortion and anti-Semitism rise worldwide, the truth itself is increasingly under threat, and the truth matters. It matters for the memory of the victims, it matters for the dignity of the survivors, and it matters for the future we are shaping for our children.
This evening, we are deeply honored and privileged to welcome someone who has dedicated her life to safeguarding that truth, Dr. Kathrin Meyer. For more than 3 decades, Dr. Meyer has worked tirelessly to combat anti-Semitism and to strengthen Holocaust remembrance around the world. She served for 17 years as Secretary General of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, better known as IHRA. Through her leadership, governments across the globe now recognize anti-Semitism and Holocaust distortion as security issues requiring urgent action. Today, Dr. Meyer continues her vital work as an advisor, historian, and consultant to governmental and non-governmental organizations. She serves on the board of TOLI, the Olga Lengel Institute for Holocaust Studies and Human Rights, and advises the European Commission in its efforts to establish a network of Holocaust sites throughout Europe. We could not ask for a more knowledgeable, dedicated, or inspiring voice to guide us this evening as we reflect on why Holocaust education and the protection of historical truth are more important than ever.
Tonight's program will begin with magnificent musical interludes performed by Stephen Fancher on piano and Dan Jordan on violin. Their music will help lift our memory, deepen our reflection, and honor the lives we commemorate. We will then welcome our distinguished keynote speaker. Dr. Meyer will be followed by the Vocem Advanced Treble Chorus from Northport High School under the musical direction of Maestro David Sommer, who have rehearsed tirelessly to bring us songs of hope and peace. And finally, towards the end of the evening, we will hear from a distinguished author and one of our beloved Holocaust survivors, Marcel Infeld, who will sing El Malay Rachamim, followed by Rabbi Mimi Wiesel, who will lead us in the Mourner's Kaddish. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for standing for truth. Thank you for the lessons. Thank you for ensuring that the lessons of the Holocaust, lessons of courage, responsibility, and our shared humanity continue to guide us forward. Please join us in welcoming Stephen Fancher and Dan Jordan.
My name is Daniel Jordan. I'm the concertmaster of Sarasota Orchestra and also the director of artistic planning for Artist Series Concerts of Sarasota. And I am joined by the CEO of All-Star Children's Foundation, who also happens to be one heck of a great pianist. And we're going to perform two pieces for you tonight that both have great meaning to both of us. The first is Schindler's List from, it's the main theme from the 1993 movie by John Williams, and the second will be the meditation from the opera Thais by Jules Massenet.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kathrin Meyer, and it is a pleasure and honor to speak to you tonight. I would like to thank the Jewish Federation of Sarasota-Manatee and Bet Zeret for the invitation, and thank you, Joyce, for the friendly introduction earlier. I would like to honor especially all of you here among us tonight who are survivors of the Holocaust, first, second, and third generation. It is an enormous privilege to be here among you tonight on the occasion of the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. The day we honor and commemorate the victims, the survivors, and their families. We pay our respect. We do this here today, 81 years after the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, in times of dramatically increasing anti-Semitism and in times of disrespect for survivors, victims, and their memory. I will speak tonight about the fact that the increasing violent anti-Semitism, as well as the increasing neglect of Holocaust remembrance, are not only a disgrace towards the victims and survivors of the Holocaust, and an attack on Jewish life and communities, but they are an attack on our societies, our democracy as a whole. I would speak about the fact that Holocaust remembrance is not about the past. It impacts our life today, and it is significant for the future. I talk to you about Holocaust distortion, an issue that was overlooked and underestimated for many years, far too long. An issue that is causing a lot of harm and is very dangerous. I will start by talking about the difference between Holocaust denial and distortion. I will give you examples of distortion, and I will put all this in the context with a few of the recent and new challenges in the field of Holocaust education and remembrance, which I call the neglect of Holocaust remembrance. I will talk about the relevance of Holocaust education and remembrance regarding the protection of democracy and open societies, and I will speak about anti-Semitism. Let me start with Holocaust denial. The fact that the Holocaust happened is obvious. The Holocaust is, after all, the best documented genocide in history. Not only do we have the testimonies of the survivors and the liberators of the death camps, the Nazis themselves recorded their crimes very well, with official records, reports, photos, and even films. To deny the facts is not something that will convince mainstream society. Those who actively deny the Holocaust, write about it to present proof that the gas chambers did not exist, do know the facts very well in order to counter them with their lies. Holocaust denial is always based on political motivation. Whether it is the neo-Nazi groups who want to rehabilitate the movement, or whether it is a state-sponsored denial as being undertaken by Iran for decades, they all do know the truth. But as the Nazis themselves, they are very much aware that you can't win over a majority when you admit that these monstrous crimes took place. One needs to delegitimize the victims of the Holocaust in order to attack and target Jews again. Holocaust denial is a form of anti-Semitism, and it is an excuse for anti-Semitism. Holocaust denial is dangerous, and it should never, never be tolerated. However, I think a much bigger threat to Holocaust remembrance is Holocaust distortion. Holocaust denial is not mainstream. The public will not fall for deniers, but much more easily for Holocaust distortion. Distortion, unlike denial, admits that the Holocaust took place, but it is manipulating the facts. Distortion is harder to spot, it is far more sophisticated, and what makes it so dangerous is that it is often seen as the lesser evil, the little brother of Holocaust denial that does not need to be taken too seriously. Distortion is often seen as an opinion, as something which falls within the freedom of speech. But distortion is not an opinion, it is also a lie. there are only facts about the Holocaust, and there cannot be different opinions about these facts. Holocaust distortion is not just the necessary stepping stone to anti-Semitism into mainstream society, it is also, like Holocaust denial, a form of anti-Semitism. And the motivation behind Holocaust distortion is also political. It is an interesting fact that the distortion of the Holocaust started already with the Holocaust by the Nazis themselves, by talking about Sonderbehandlung, special treatment, or Endlösung, final solution, instead of what it was, murder and genocide. Another example for Holocaust distortion was a discourse in many communist countries after World War II. The official language was victims of fascism. This was an easy way out of avoiding naming the Jews as the main target. And it was an attempt to make all victims equal. Let me be very clear. On the personal, on the human level, all victims of murder are equal. They suffer the same. Their death is based on a crime. The suffering and the grieving of their families is the same. Murder is murder. But when it comes to the analysis of the Holocaust, we must be accurate. And an important part of accuracy is to be clear about the victims. Not all victims of Nazi persecution were victims of the Holocaust. To just talk about Nazi victims in general ignores the specificity of the Holocaust. Nazi Germany had a firm plan to annihilate the Jewish people worldwide. They had lists of the estimated Jewish population of all countries, not only the countries they had occupied or were planning to occupy, worldwide. This is unprecedented and needs to be understood. The Holocaust was based on anti-Semitism and not on general hate. In this context, I would like to refer to Anne Frank. She wrote several times in her diary that she did not want to be remembered only as Jewish. She wanted to be seen as a writer, as a dreamer, as a person. And it is crucial to respect Anne's wishes. No victim of the Holocaust should be reduced to their Jewishness. This is the reason why it is important to learn and teach about Jewish life and Jewish culture before and after the Holocaust in this context. However, when analyzing the causes and consequences of the Holocaust, it is also very important to stress the fact that Anne Frank was Jewish. She was targeted and murdered because she was Jewish, not because she was a writer or a dreamer. So, while there are strong and important general lessons to be learned from the Holocaust and the ideology that led to it, it is important to never lose sight of the specifics when it comes to the victims. And accuracy is equally needed when it comes to the perpetrators and their collaborators. I want to stress a fact. It was Germany who was responsible for the Holocaust, period. But the magnitude of the Holocaust could not have happened without local collaboration. And that needs to be addressed. Leaving out this part when remembering the Holocaust or focusing mainly on the rescuers is also a form of distortion. I would like to give you a few more examples of distortion, also to show how much it is being spread altogether. We talk about Holocaust distortion when we see intentional efforts to excuse or minimize the impact of the Holocaust or its principles, like anti-Semitism. A gross minimization of the number of the victims is Holocaust distortion. Attempts to blame the Jews for causing their own genocide, or claiming Jews take advantage of the Holocaust today. Abusing the term Holocaust for contemporary issues is a form of Holocaust distortion. When animal rights groups talk about the Holocaust on your plate, or anti-abortion groups talk about a baby Holocaust, that is Holocaust distortion. Blaming political opponents as Nazis can be a form of Holocaust distortion. And, most insidious, to equate the victims of the Holocaust with the perpetrators, Jews with Nazis. A frequent and obscene occurrence often used to delegitimize the existence of the State of Israel. One of the news sources of distortion can also be artificial intelligence. We need to be aware of the ability of AI to generate authoritative-looking images, videos, and other content that distorts or denies the Holocaust. AI has unleashed an epistemological crisis where traditional ways of proving something to be true are in doubt. And this is very damaging and dangerous in times of low institutional trust, as today. The internet is being flooded with fake news, with false imagery, conspiracy theories, etc. And this is what teachers are up against when teaching about the Holocaust today. We have to be aware that the young generation does not differentiate anymore between the real and the digital world. There is only one world for them, and parts of that world are digital, and that part is full of lies when it comes to the Holocaust. So why does that all matter? First of all, Holocaust distortion is morally wrong. It is a disgrace to the victims and to the survivors and to their families. Families in which a whole generation had to grow up and live their lives without grandparents, without aunts, uncles, and cousins. To neglect or downplay this reality is simply outrageous. But Holocaust distortion is also very dangerous on another level. It is one of the strongest and it is one of the most efficient tools, not just for anti-Semitic, but for anti-democratic, nationalistic, and anti-pluralistic movements. From the far right to the far left, Islamistic and even radical Christian groups, they all distort the Holocaust. And with this, they pave the way for radicalization into mainstream society and they normalize anti-Semitism. Distortion is a justification for anti-Semitism, and it even served as a justification for a war. The world witnessed one of the most radical forms of Holocaust and historical distortion in February 2022, when Russian troops invaded Ukraine. Vladimir Putin justified this deadly invasion by distorting history and making false claims referring to Nazi Germany. He stated that Russia needs to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. The claim that under the leadership of a Jewish president, Ukraine was a Nazi state is one of the most ridiculous and radical forms of Holocaust and history distortion. It is what my colleague Mark Weitzman called distortion on steroids. The distortion of history is not only an attack on liberal democracies and their values, it kills people, Jews and non-Jewish people. And we are facing a new challenge today: Holocaust remembrance neglect. The trend to shy away or refuse from teaching and learning about the Holocaust, remembering the Holocaust altogether. I think for all of us in this room, Holocaust remembrance and Holocaust education is pretty much a given. And it should indeed not be controversial. To teach and learn about the Holocaust, its causes, its consequences, its lessons. And yet it is controversial, more than ever. I am in this field of work for over 30 years, and in my wildest dreams could I not have imagined what I see today. Since the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th, 2023, we see a dramatic rise of anti-Semitism instead of solidarity with the victims of that attack. Holocaust remembrance became unpopular. Holocaust survivors are being uninvited from classrooms and speaking to students. They are openly challenged in the classrooms. Holocaust exhibitions are being cancelled or are being banned from public sphere. Students avoid class visits to the Holocaust Museum by calling in sick that day. I give you now 2 quotes that I got from teachers who are facing this reject. This is not the time for Jewish victimhood. The Holocaust is not the genocide we should talk about these days. This is what teachers hear from students, from parents, and even from colleagues when preparing a visit to a Holocaust museum or teaching about the Holocaust. Let me come back to Holocaust Memorial Day for a moment. It was established as an international recognized Memorial Day by the United Nations 20 years ago. The Holocaust was a defining event of the 20th century, and yet it took the international community 60 years to recognize that day. Jewish communities and Jewish families never needed a Holocaust Memorial Day. They lived with the consequences every day of the year. However, the establishment of that day was important to raise awareness among mainstream societies. Holocaust remembrance became a given in many countries. And I would like to give you an example here from the United Kingdom that was always like the shining star when it came to Holocaust Memorial Day commemorations. Until recently, there were over 7,000 events all over the country in the United Kingdom on Holocaust Memorial Day. Besides the main event with the highest political level, the Prime Minister attending, always somebody from the royal family, etc., there were events held on the level of municipalities, schools, libraries, even in prisons. I dare to say that nobody in the UK would not notice Holocaust Memorial Day on that day. In 2023, in January 2023, 2,000 events were held in middle schools alone in the UK. This number was down to a bit over 800 last year. The Holocaust is not the genocide we should talk about these days. That is the explanation, the justification for canceling Holocaust Memorial Days. The knowledge about the Holocaust is declining in many countries. Learning about it is not a given anymore. Holocaust remembrance is being politicized and questioned. History is being minimized. And this is the situation we all find ourselves in, and most worrisome, many teachers are facing. So what might be possible responses to these challenges? First of all, we need to be clear why we teach and learn about the Holocaust, why it is remembered, even if it's challenging, and why Holocaust remembrance is not optional. The question often arises, is Holocaust education the right tool to fight and prevent anti-Semitism? And my answer to that is very clear. No, it is not. However, there is no fight against anti-Semitism without the knowledge of the Holocaust. It is not the silver bullet against anti-Semitism, but there cannot be a fight against anti-Semitism without Holocaust remembrance and knowledge about the Holocaust. Holocaust remembrance is political, but it should never be politicized. Holocaust remembrance is paying tribute and respect to the victims and the survivors of the Holocaust, and they were Jewish. This is an act of decency, and we are all morally obligated to let the knowledge about the Holocaust, the memory of the victims, the experiences the survivors shared with us, never be forgotten. That in itself is important and should never be questioned. However, Holocaust remembrance and Holocaust education are more. Remembering and teaching about the Holocaust is an act of civic duty. We need to learn about what was sometimes called the failure of civilization. What were the mechanisms that led to the exclusion of fellow citizens, their devaluation, humiliation, deportation, and murder under the eyes of their colleagues and their neighbors, and all of that with the assistance of locals, of members of the community. Those who tweak and question the facts or call them fake are attacking not just the historical facts, the victims and the survivors, they attack all of us. They attack our values. This is why Holocaust education is not just something about the past. Holocaust education and the knowledge of the historical facts provides us and future generations with early warning signs. Symbols and acts of hatred appear in public spaces, not as jokes, but as warnings of what could come next. These are not isolated incidents. They are signals that we have seen before. And this is what many Holocaust survivors express these days when they talk about their worries and fears. They are afraid history will repeat itself and something like the Holocaust could happen again, and they are afraid to be forgotten. I mentioned it before, and please let me stress this again. The memory of the victims and the survivors is under attack. Holocaust remembrance as we know it might not be continued on a wide scale in the future if we do not act now. And this is where my personal heroes come into the picture, teachers. I call them the defenders of the truth. But they face major challenges. Teachers often report about being very insecure or reluctant to pick up the topic, even when it's mandatory. Some teachers express to be afraid talking about the Holocaust in their classes because they don't feel confident enough to stand up and to counter the accusations towards Jews or Israel, towards the false proof of Holocaust denial and distortion created by AI that students bring into the classroom. And they are too often left without proper training and tools to deal with those challenges. But teachers are the ones we need in this fight to keep the memory alive. They stick their heads out, day in, day out, at the front lines of our communities and our societies. We need them to keep doing that, because often teachers are the first from whom students learn about the Holocaust. They need tools, training, and networks. If we expect teachers to throw themselves into this field, teach about the Holocaust in a changing and in a challenging environment, they need to feel confident, they need to feel valued, and they need to feel supported. So let's give them all the support we can. But since Holocaust distortion is also an open invitation and justification, not just for distorted views, but for violent anti-Semitism, we need more than education. We cannot throw the responsibility for a hardcore security issue in the lap of the young people, the next generation. We need tools that help us to call out and counter anti-Semitism directly. We need governmental involvement, we need law enforcement to act. And this is where the anti-Semitism definition of the International Holocaust Remembrance comes into the picture. I had the honor to be the Secretary General of this International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, and I do not talk about this definition because I see it as one of my greatest achievements in my career, but because it really has practical value. Some of you might have heard about the definition. It was actually adopted in Florida and signed into law in 2024. It mandates that this definition is used to identify, monitor, and report anti-Semitic hate crime and discrimination. Allow me to briefly introduce it to you. The definition says, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. This is the core of the definition, and it's not controversial. But for a better understanding, there are examples given in that definition as well, and they refer to Israel-related anti-Semitism. And we all know that there is a lot of anti-Semitism these days related to Israel, camouflaged as anti-Zionism. So these examples are important illustrations for understanding of anti-Semitism today, not for those affected by it, they know it, But if we want to do law enforcement training, we need to give them examples to understand what we're talking about. It is these examples that led to the criticism against this definition. This definition is accused of labeling any form of criticism towards Israel as anti-Semitic, which is of course wrong. The definition states very clearly, criticism of Israel, and now I put emphasis on the next part of the sentence, so criticism of Israel, similar to that leveled against other countries, cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic. But criticism of Israel often questions Israel's right of existence, and therefore it cannot be compared to the criticism of that against other countries. The slogan that we hear on campuses today, from the river to the sea, is even calling for a genocide. Despite all these discussions about the definition, I have to say it was a true game changer. Wherever I traveled, and I traveled to many countries, I represented 35 member countries in the IHRA, I always heard anti-Semitism is a huge problem. We need to do something about it. But thankfully, we don't have anti-Semitism in our country. The definition led to the fact that anti-Semitism is being recognized as an existing and serious threat to Jewish communities and beyond, which was not the case before. It led to the establishment of special envoys, of action plans, of legislation, like here in Florida. So why did I tell you all this? Because we need tools such as this definition, teaching materials on anti-Semitism and the Holocaust, if we want to see action. It is a lack of tools and knowledge that keeps people, institutions, governments from addressing and tackling issues. I talked about how teachers need tools and training if we want them to teach about the Holocaust in a meaningful way. You might be surprised to learn that the IHRA, the only intergovernmental institution exclusively mandated to protect the memory of the Holocaust and to look into its causes, anti-Semitism, and consequences, did not deal with anti-Semitism for the first 10 years of their existence. When I attended one of the first meetings of the IHRA, I was not still working for them at that point, I wanted to present teaching materials on anti-Semitism that I had developed together with the Anne Frank House in Amsterdam. The educational working group of the IHRA would not allow me to speak about these teaching materials. We don't deal with anti-Semitism. We do Holocaust remembrance, I was told. Back then, we were in that situation that Holocaust education did not specifically address anti-Semitism. It was just implied. And that is still the case today in many teaching materials. It was a lack of knowledge and confidence among the educators that led to that refusal to deal with anti-Semitism. And the same is true for governmental representatives. Thankfully, we have come a long way. So let me ask the same question that I asked earlier about Holocaust remembrance. Does this definition bring anti-Semitism to an end? No, it does not. As we see every day, and as we have seen time and again, anti-Semitism is rising and anti-Semites keep killing people in Europe, in the US, in Australia, everywhere. Anti-Semitism is a threat to many. The ideology is one that had led to a world war. It is not only a minority that is affected by it. And because it is so tremendously dangerous, it needs to be fought back on all levels, and it needs to involve all of society. The Holocaust could only happen because the values of human dignity of all, democratic principles, and the rule of law were destroyed. It happened also because of the indifference of mainstream societies, mainly in Europe, but also beyond. And it happened because the warning signs were not taken seriously. And these are lessons we need to keep alive. This means learning from the Holocaust, not just about the Holocaust. So when we come across Holocaust distortion, we should not take it as a misinformed but harmless phenomenon. This is how it begins, but this is never how it ends. We need to be alerted and ready to fight back in order to secure Jewish life and communities and also our democracy. We should never allow Holocaust remembrance and the work against anti-Semitism being played against each other. We need them both. They go hand in hand. And not only on Holocaust Memorial Day, because never again is today, and never again is every day. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is David Sulmer. I am the Director of Choral and Vocal Studies at Northport High School in Northport, Florida. As you see these young ladies before you, besides my nuclear family and my newborn, they're my why. I wake up every morning knowing this is what I do. And we perform every year for Yom HaShoah and several times at my synagogue. And there's an educator in the room, Mr. Zach Ward, where are you? And he teaches the Holocaust class at our school, and in conjunction with him, I don't believe that tolerance is enough. I believe acceptance is what we should be teaching. And when we teach, and because of this, it has wanted me to further my education in the music of the Holocaust. And in doing so, every year we add a piece to what we do for that. And unfortunately, we call it Holocaust Remembrance Day. One day is not enough. Every day, we should be remembering these tragedies. And that's what we teach as well. And my job is not just teaching music. It goes off the page. It goes into reality, and it goes into real-world situations. So that's what we teach here. And we're going to perform for you tonight. Most of you know Bette Midler's From a Distance. And we will then, that's arranged by Tina Chin. And then we will be performing for you a song of the Holocaust titled Ani Ma'amin. And if you know anything about Judaism, as far as I could think, most of what we learn is about hope and making dreams come true. And unfortunately for the 6 million, that didn't happen. So we are going to perform for you From a Distance and Ani Ma'amin. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the invitation.
From a distance, the world looks blue and green, and the snow-capped mountains white. From a distance, the ocean meets the stream, and the eagle takes to flight. From a distance, there is harmony. distance. God is watching us. God is watching us. God is watching us from a distance. From a distance, you look like my friend, even though we are at war. From a distance, I just cannot comprehend what all this fighting is for. From a distance, there is harmony, and it echoes through the land. It's the hope of hopes, it's the love of loves, it's the heart of every man. God is watching us, God is watching
Thank you to Stephen and Dan, Kathrin, and the Northport Chorus for your truly inspirational words and music. For those of you who are able, we kindly ask that you please stand as we invite our local Holocaust survivors and their families to join us. Second generation survivor Agnes Schipper will now light 6 candles representing the 6 million Jewish lives lost, among them 1.5 million Jewish children, those who survived, those who rescued and liberated them, the families who carry their legacy forward, and Jews throughout the diaspora who continue to face the wrath of antisemitism. May we hope for peace, and may we always remember.
Please remain standing as we are graced by author and Holocaust survivor Marcel Infeld, who will chant El Male Rachamim. He will be followed by Rabbi Mimi Wiesel, who will lead us together in the Mourner's Kaddish.
El male rachamim, shochen bameromim, aמצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע, מזהירים את נשמות חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל וכל אלה שמסרו את נפשם על קידוש השם ושנהרגו בשואה. אנא בעל הרחמים, תסתירם בצל כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמותם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבם, ונאמר אמן.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei techol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'zman kariv v'yimru, amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mivorach li'olam umei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, V'yithadar, v'yitale, v'yitalal, shmei dekudasha, brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiram bi'alma, v'yimru, amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen.
We extend our heartfelt thanks to the very inspirational Dr. Kathrin Meyer, to the magnificent musicians Stephen Fancher and Dan Jordan, and to the moving Vochem Advanced Treble Chorus from Northport High School and their director, David Sommer. Our deepest gratitude also goes to Rabbi Wiesel and to Marcel Infeld, and above all to our beloved Holocaust survivors and their families. As we commemorate the dark chapter of history, we must remember history cannot repeat itself. We're witnessing a resurgence of Holocaust distortion, anti-Semitism, and hate in our time. We must be upstanders, not bystanders. By educating, speaking out, and coming together, we can make a difference. The rise of anti-Jewish hate is not only a Jewish problem, it's a warning sign for all of humanity. It is up to each of us to act, and to act now.
Before we close, please remain standing and join us in reciting the Hands Against Hate pledge as we renew our commitment to building a community rooted in inclusion, compassion, and peace. I pledge to stand up and resist hate, bigotry, and bullying. I will not stay silent in the face of intolerance. I will work with my neighbors to create kinder, safer, and more inclusive communities for all. Thank you for spending this evening with us. Please join us in the lobby for refreshments and conversation with Dr. Meyer and with one another. You are also invited to visit the Early American Jewish History exhibit in the Stuhlberg Gallery. We thank you for being here, and as we hope for peace for all, we say shalom.
Shalom. They couldn't wait.
Yeah.